Hello everyone, and welcome to the second Undercards for the Smallest Ones video. Today I'll tell you a bit more about the souls, tell you about how to build some decks, and show some really budget decks to start with. First of all, I've decided to divide the deck building into three large groups. Basic, for standard and up to Ruby 4, Advanced, for Ruby 4 up to Legend, and Professional, for Legend up to top 10. Basic deck building includes souls that are not dependent on spell set, simple cards, and very few combos. My aim is to get to top 10 till the end of the season, but today's focus is basic deck building skills, so let's start with souls. First of all, we have kindness. With kindness, you get additional health advantage both for your souls HP, which is usually called face, and your monsters. And kindness is extremely dependent on the spell set, so it's not our pick. The second soul is Determination. With Determination, you have some additional survivability tools, but Determination is for control style, and of course it's extremely dependent on the spell set, so it's not our pick either. The third soul is Patience. With Patience, you can really control your top decks, but it's not worth it because Patience is extremely dependent on the spell set as well, so we don't pick it. The fourth soul is Bravery, and that's where things start getting interesting. With Bravery, you gain additional resources, especially when you are low on cards. And Bravery is independent on the spell set, which is really cool, because the best spell is in the base set, and you won't really need to craft anything else. With Integrity, the fifth soul, you gain additional gold, and you have to spend that gold on some very expensive minions. And there are very few of them in the starting set, so it's not our pick. What's more, Integrity is really dependent on the spell set. With the sixth soul, which is called Perseverance, we get some additional control tool called Karma. But Control Perseverance is really dependent on the spell set as well. However, Aggro Perseverance is not dependent on the spell set, and the best spell for it is already in the base set. So I'll show the deck list for it. And the last seventh soul is Justice. With Justice, you just deal some additional damage at the end of the turn, which helps you maintain the board pressure and the board presence. And Justice is not that dependent on the spell set, so you can really try it as well. I'll show the deck list for it a bit later. Okay, now let's get to the builds. So, for Bravery, we really want some aggro, which can finish off the opponent as fast as possible. And I prefer this build, which is really budget. It costs only 240 dust, which is not that much, and I'm sure I'll hit Ruby 4 with it. The second build is for those who want to try Aggro Perseverance. Of course, it's also quite budget, but at the same time, it's not that cool as the Bravery one, so I really advise playing Bravery. And the third build is for Justice. As you can see, there are more common cards in it, and of course it's more expensive, and of course it's much harder to play. However, I've decided to add this build as well, but don't worry, when I hit Ruby 4 I'll make a better version of this, and I'll be hitting Legend with some deal Justice, probably. So I really advise playing Bravery instead. And now let's get to some standard games, where I'll show you how to play the deck. Of course, we are managing to find the game pretty fast, and as you can notice, we are probably playing against some bot, which is really how it's supposed to be. We want to mulligan for the cheapest card which we can play, and the thing we are going to do with this deck is just playing all the cards we can and just pushing our opponent. We shouldn't really trade playing this deck because it's an aggro deck, and we should use any opportunity to hit face when it is given. However, when you see there is a value trade, you could just do it instead, because sometimes it's not worth hitting face. We also got our Tiny Frogget buffed from power, which is funny. Okay, here you can see that we have Spider, which has haste and 2 attack, and our opponent has a minion with 2 HP, so we can really trade in here and set up our recruitment. From recruitment, we usually want to get some cards that cost 5 gold, so we can just throw them, or alternatively, we can just do this and hit face. When your opponent is far from having little, you shouldn't really trade, you should just set up the little yourself. The deck is really easy to play, and the thing you should remember, you should just play your cards. Now let's check what we have here. Okay, from recruits you usually want to take some additional face damage or some haste monsters. Of course, you can alternatively pick something to buff your hand or your other monsters, but I think we go for this one. And just to get our passive proc, because on turn 6 we may get 2 cards instead of 1 card, we should trade somewhere in here. And just play our Snowdrake to deal some more face damage. This means our opponent is probably dead next turn, and if he's not, we can just find something to lethal him. The games with this deck are pretty fast, and you shouldn't really think much playing this deck. You should just hit face and get some cards from your recruitments. For instance, here we can just pick a very solid 4th drop, and here we can pick something with haste or redacted, which is also like haste, but a bit different. And now we have little, and that's a game. So we are going to play this, and we are going to farm some additional gold and our levels in standard. I'm going to skip this part because it's not that interesting. Okay, and now I'm playing against Justice. Playing against Justice, you really don't want to play any of your monsters early on, because he'll just kill them with his passive, and then you'll have more problems. However, playing against Justice, I'd really like to mention that the positioning is really important. Against Justice and Perseverance, you want to play your monsters on the left side of the board, so that your Generator gave them health instead of attack. But playing against all the other souls, you really want to play your monsters on the right, so that you could kill your opponent as fast as possible. And now the queue took some time for me, which means I may be playing against a real player, and I get a decent hand against him. That's probably the best hand you can get, because playing as many cards as possible during your first turn is like really amazing. And the TV gave me a really cool card. But of course I started the record for another reason. I'd also like to tell you something about the way you play your recruitments. You shouldn't really play your recruitments as fast as you get them. You should just hold them, and depending on the game situation, use them when you need them. Right now we have a decent board, and we can just buff our board and trade our opponent's card as well. This is really important to do so, because sometimes it's really not worth just hitting face, because our opponent can play more cards, buff them, and then we are in trouble. But at the same time, Bravery can really maintain the board presence as well as hitting your opponent's face, which is important to remember, and that's why I really love the deck. It gives you some versatility. Now we can buff it once again, but now we don't really want to trade, because if our opponent decides to trade, he'll just kill his own minions, and that's fine for us. We just want to deal some damage now. And as you may notice, I didn't really use my recruitments yet, because I don't feel I need those. Now I can start using them just to get some cards I can play right now. Of course I go for some buff, because buff is always nice. By the way, do I have lethal? No, I don't, so maybe I'll find lethal from here. No, but I can just pick some 4th drop instead. Okay, we probably won here, but that's the tips I wanted to give you. Never use your recruitments early on. The game situation may change, and then you are pretty screwed up with the scenes you've picked before. Now there is another problem many people are facing. And that's the problem of fighting someone who is higher level than you. That's not really the issue, because you can still beat them. And let me show you that really works like that. Of course, the thing is his determination, which means he may control. Okay, never mind. He's just playing some other type of determination soul, like other playstyle. So let me show you, this is still winnable, even despite he has a much higher level than me. That's fine. As you could notice, I still have one recruitment because I played many cards before the third turn, and that's really nice. That's always an awesome stat. Okay, he's probably playing some lamp determination. That's not that good for me. We still won, even despite him being a much higher level than me. Okay, so I've spent something like an hour playing the game, and finally I'm level 10. As you can notice, I have 0 losses in my history, which means the deck really works. I even faced Justice and managed to win them, which means the deck is really good and really worth trying and playing. Now there is Ranked. The video about Ranked is going to be a bit later. I'm going to tell you about the structure of Ranked, about how to play there, about why to play there, and I'm gonna play there myself. And as I've mentioned before, I'm really aiming at top 10 legend for this season. So wait for the video, stay for more videos, subscribe, share this video, and just leave some likes. Thank you for watching, thanks for your attention, goodbye, and see you soon!